Alright guys, what's up? Welcome to another video. Again, precaution, I'm still a little sick, so I might have to mute the mic every now and then to cough or to blow my nose, just letting you know. But yeah, here's another replay. This is another league game, like the first video I did, so I'll be going over the plays that were done, some pretty interesting things about it overall, and what kind of happened to lead to the downfall of a certain CO, I guess you could say. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's get this started. Just to discuss the COs real quick, I'm playing Von Bolt, and Von Bolt, as you can see right here, he does get a 10% firepower and defense boost on all of his units day to day at no extra cost, which is a really strong day to day. That means that it's a lot harder to really do anything to him, 10% harder, and he's going to fire back a bit better as well. That also means that if he gets any first strikes in, that's going to devastate some units, and also any type of comm tower support he can get is really good. My opponent, the Super CO power that he has, he doesn't have a normal one, just a Super CO, is Ex Machina. And Ex Machina targets a missile-shaped area, so it's where it's like 3 spaces. So just to give an example, right here, we will use the HQ as a reference point. So it would target the HQ, and then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Also filling in the corners right here with it as well. So it'd be this type of area would get fired with a missile that would deal 3 hit points of damage, and would also stun enemies, meaning that they basically act as if they've already waited and they don't get to initiate any other actions. They can still fire back if I attack them, however. And although that Super CO power is really not going to matter too much, because I'm playing against Sasha. Now, we've already seen a game against Sasha. She gets the extra 10% income for every property that's not a lab or comm tower that she has in general. And Market Crash, which will reduce my CO power by, if I recall correctly, it was 10% for every 5,000 funds. And then War Bonds gives 50% of whatever damage she deals out to my units as income back. So if she destroys a Neo tank from my end, then she gets 11,000. So I'm going first. Let's go ahead and get this started. I build my infantry, and I pass over turn. I do fire on this pipe seam right here with my artillery. There's just not an animation in the replay. But pretty much you can assume that that's always happening until everything is broken. I move out over to the base per normal, just like my opponent is, and so does my opponent move out with infantry, moving onto the mountains and just moving in general. Basically just want to be building a ton of infantry to start off with. As normal, you want to make sure that you've got enough to start capping everything that you can, because you want to build the economy. Finishes up capping the base, and because they're player 2, Sasha, they are going to be able to be ahead of the capture game most likely, just given the CO that they're playing. They continue to move out with everything. Then they go for infantry and infantry per normal. I'm pretty much going to be doing the same thing as well. Finish capping the base, and I move over with an infantry to the side. Move over, cap the harbor, build 2 infantry and pass over. Nothing super special, but we'll see some deviating plays pretty soon. I continue to move out. They've got their bases open now. Then they go infantry, infantry, artillery. And this is so that way they can try and blow up this seam right here and try and make sure that they can move this artillery out, actually freeing it up and letting it be useful. This is something that I have not done when I played on this map beforehand. So I basically just continue moving forward as if I couldn't do anything with it, continue to move out with the infantry, and I build an APC. I've seen a replay commentary somewhat recently where they were playing on this map, and they actually ended up building an APC fairly early to try and move out to get properties. And I figured I might as well try it, not really going to impact me much. I mean, it's just going to be something that I can do to move infantry out and about. And they move over, and they continue capping. They're getting the airport, which is always good, and moving out to start getting some more contested properties per normal. Build infantry, infantry, infantry. And then we proceed to my turn. I load up the infantry right away, and I move it out so that way I can start capping on these properties. Over here, I want to try and just get as much of a presence in this section as possible to try and get an income lead if I can. And I go for tank, and I have enough money to still build 2 infantry out of my bases per normal. I go for the 2 properties down here, and I move out and I move down so I can try and get the airport. Continue moving out, and as you can see, Sasha's already capped the airport and already has 9 properties now, which is pretty scary because they're already making almost 2,000 more than I am. I will be bringing this up pretty soon with the properties that I have, but they're also initiating a ton of captures on their end, so it's not as if it's super even overall. And they go tank, infantry, infantry, and pass over the turn. As you can see, they still have a few shots left that they have to do in order to get their artillery free. Always fine with me. I'm able to load up an infantry into the APC, and I can move it, just shoot it straight up, drop it into the forest, and start capping over here. I start capping out the comm tower now, because I've played on this map quite a few times, and I do know that we're starting to get to the point where engagements are going to be happening soon, and I do want to go ahead and get it now, because we're going to be taking engagement soon. So I guess you could say I'm using just knowledge of the map overall to my advantage. Continue to move out with the tank and the infantry that I've built, and I've got 8,000, so I just go for 3 infantry. And the reason to leave a base open when I can just end up saving that money for next turn, potentially building some more units overall. So now I'm at 12,000, and after capping their properties over here, they're at 13 properties in total, making still quite a bit more than I am. Continue to move out, and they are almost done blowing up the pipe seam, as we will see. They'll be actually able to move out both infantry pretty soon. Or not infantry, artillery, excuse me. Then they go for battlecopter, infantry, infantry, infantry over here for it. Pretty good play. They still don't have any tanks out aside from 1. And admittedly, I only have 1 as well. But you obviously can see that they have a pretty good offensive presence overall. They're getting ready to have 2 artillery and a battlecopter coming over with their tank already kind of getting in position. Anyways, continue moving out, capping the properties in comm tower. And I'm able to move up and start capping over here. I am able to move the tank into the forest, which is really good. It gives me some vision. I know that he's already here, meaning that engagements are going to be happening soon. And it also means that I might be able to trap him as well if he tries to go for the forest. I continue to move up and bring the APC down, so trying to make as much use of it as possible. I build out a tank on the base over here to continue to reinforce. And with the money that I have left, I am able to build out another tank if I want to, which I do indeed do, along with an infantry. So Sasha continues, does get trapped, which is awesome, but now they know that I have a tank here. They do move out to try and start taking the middle properties, which is pretty scary overall. You definitely don't want Sasha to have, a whole lot of properties over you. And as you can see, this artillery doesn't move, but I'm pretty sure that's because it had to shoot in order to blow up the pipe seam. So that's why it still shows as able to move, but hasn't moved. I just get trapped by my infantry as well over here, but he's moving in a ton of his infantry to take it out. I continue moving around, shuffling through, and she goes tank, infantry, infantry, and passes over, obviously because you want to make sure you've got all of your bases filled out without, and you don't have to use all of your money constantly. Anyways, I move up with the infantry, I move down to capture this city over here, and once again I place him over into the forest to start capping over here. I do fire on his infantry with my tank and infantry to take it out, and this will also mean that he's not able to see my tank, which means that if he does have any type of presence over here, he's going to have to scout it first, which is good. I'm able to start capping over on the property, but I do see that he's there. I go and interrupt this one. I know my infantry is probably dead because the tank knows it's here, so I want to just try and do as much as I can. I continue moving over to try and capture some properties over here. In hindsight, seeing that I've the amount of units that I see, I probably could have just pulled this up over here maybe, because it's probably going to die, but still, I mean, worth the risk, I'd say right now. It's not detrimental yet. I continue moving forward with my infantry and the tanks that I've built. I've got 17,000, so I go for battlecopter, infantry, infantry, infantry. As you can see, Sasha's just doing this earlier than me, though. Sasha already did that play. So Sasha just has more units than me. I mean, it doesn't seem like it right now, but as soon as she builds, she'll have way more than I will. I probably was playing pretty poorly overall, but he goes for the cap over here, and I capture on this as well. He continues to move down. So he's just got like a ton of infantry right here, just ready to do stuff. And he's almost making the same amount as I am. In fact, if I hadn't interrupted this cap, we'd be at the same amount of properties. Give me just a second. Alright, there we go. Continues to move the artillery together. I mean, they're stronger when they are together, so that way they can cover each other. And he moves the battlecopter over, so that way he can get some vision to try and help aid the artillery. He does end up taking down my infantry, which is sad. He interrupts the cap over here completely with a tank of his own. As you can see, I'm moving in mine, though, to try and get rid of this, and he moves his tank further down. Continues moving out on the mountains and goes for triple tank because he can, which is really strong. That puts just a ton of presence on board overall, and his value is super high right now. Now I am going for captures now, which is really good for me. I'm going to be able to get this most likely, depending on how things go around. And I'm already at 18 properties, which is really good. And I'm capping 3 in total. I moved the battlecopter up over here. Probably could have moved it down further onto this side, but again, doesn't really matter much. I do move the APC back so I can continue to ferry infantry. I fully interrupt the cap over here just to make sure this is just taken care of, and then I'm able to put my infantry back into the forest and initiate a capture. I'm able to fire on his infantry and nearly take it out. I'm a little upset I don't. Now, I don't exactly know where the tank is because, again, this game was played over the course of a day or two, so I move my tank over here to try and make sure that it has property defenses covering it, and I can try and maybe get a first strike if it moves around. I continue to move up with my infantry and protect my HQ, just so that way in case he has something lying in a wait, he's not able just to try and rush it out. And then I build an anti-air and then to infantry with a battlecopter. Move over to this property to see what he's doing, and as you can see, he can actually see what I'm doing with his battlecopter, which isn't good. Now I finished up the cap over here, tying it up really well, caps on some more properties. And he covers the cap as well, which is really good. He finishes up over here and then moves down to start capping that city down here. He does move and he's able to see my infantry, meaning he's able to potentially interrupt it. He does guard the capture with his tank over here and starts capping the property that I have, which is a little ballsy trying to take mine, but I still see why he did it. He moves over the battlecopter now, takes a really good shot there, and he does move over with the indirects as well to get them lying in wait. He gets trapped again, which is freaking great. It's always what you want to have happen. And now he's just amassing a huge blob over here of infantry, which is just going to basically stall for time until the tanks come. Sorry about that. Moves out with the tanks over here. And then he's got 16,000, so he can go battlecopter and then triple infantry again, just to still keep up the aggression and the pressure. Let's see here, I do finish some capping over here on my end, bring me up to 20,000, which is good, and I'm able to cap over here and still continue a cap here, which will be very good for me. Let's see here, I move over with the infantry to help reinforce it and continue to move out on my end. I do interrupt the capture over here. No reason to let him have a property over me, for sure, especially when it's one of mine. So now I'm at 21,000, which is good. I believe I had to move this tank up and it got trapped, and that's why I'm firing on this tank right now. You'll see an infantry move over the tank and it'll be a little buggy right there. But I do go for this capture over here just to try and take what I can. And I do fire on the infantry, and I do it like that so I can move into the forest again and take cover and still destroy it. I can move my infantry over, and I can put the APC into the forest so that way it's not spotted, and I just drop off the infantry. So that way, hopefully he won't know that I have it. Because I see the battlecopter over here, I build out an anti-air over on this side to make sure I can try and take care of that. And because I do see the 2 artillery, you're going to see something else that I'll do pretty soon, is I build my own artillery to help with getting this one out. I'm like, oh shoot, I probably should do that now that I think about it. I move the infantry back to make him have to do something in order to kill it, and now we move on to day 11 on his end. Moves over onto the property and takes out my infantry. Starts capping on this side as well. You're going to see pretty interesting play though. He moves over, destroys this, and then he does interrupt the capture on this property, moves his tank back, and rather than going for anything, like rather than moving this tank away like to the forest and still interrupt the cap or over here and get a first strike, he does this, which is a little odd. I probably could have done it a bit differently to ensure that he's able to take it out. That's besides the point. He moves in with his units to destroy this infantry, and he still sees the 3 hit point one that I have. He gets a first strike on mine on the road, and then another strike to kill it, which is not good. Moves onto the property to get some healing and make me have to destroy it in order to try and take it. So his infantry blob is just doing really good, and now he's got 2 tanks basically ready to come in to take on my 2 tanks as well. Although he still doesn't know that I have a battlecopter, which is pretty good. He moves down his battlecopter now, goes for recon, tank, and infantry, along with another battlecopter. This recon, I'm assuming is probably being built to either try and come over and aid these artilleries in terms of their shooting power, or maybe he plans to build like a medium tank or a neo tank in order to try and help that out. Because obviously neo tanks and medium tanks only have 1 vision. We're not playing a Sonya here, meaning that they can't really do anything on their own, so they need some type of help. Anyways, I continue forward, I initiate caps, and I do end up getting the city, which is nice, putting me at 22,000. That is always good. I move over and I do see the cap that's going on, and I fire on it. And I continue to move out with my infantry. I don't know why I end up attacking on that tank. I can't say for certain, but I move my anti-air up along with the battlecopter to kind of get this into position. I take out the infantry on the city and the infantry right there. And yeah, I'm just able to continue to strike his infantry and taking him out, which is always good, doing as much as I can. I go for a cap, and I basically try and look to reinforce this cap potentially. I don't think I'm going to get it, but I still want to try. I move the infantry over, and I decide to end up just dropping it off same turn because of the way APCs work in Advanced Wars by Web, meaning I'm able to basically get an extra movement on all of my infantry that are in range, which is nice. I continue moving out over here on my end, and I move up the anti-air. I mean, I know there's probably going to be some battlecopters coming from this side as well. I highly doubt he's sending every single battlecopter this way, because that's dumb. That's besides the point. I continues to move out. I build a tank, and an infantry, another battlecopter, and then I end up not moving with my battlecopter. Was that right? Oh no, I struck over here. I guess the replay bugged a little. I don't know. Anyways, continue moving over. Does first strike and take out the infantry on that end with the artillery, and then he continues to move. So now that way they're covering each other decently well. Except there is this little like point right here. If I had a unit that could like just zip in over here and strike one of them, then the other one cannot, which is pretty good. Continues to move in with the battlecopters, trying to close in. He does get the first strike on the tank, which is not good, and he's able to fire on the infantry as well, which is terrible for me. He brings over the 3 hit point tank to try and stall out what the other 5 hit point infantry can do, and then he does remove this cap entirely, which sucks. We pretty much have been fighting over like this property quite a while. Moves over to the forest, and then he does finish out the cap over here. Not the cap, sorry, the infantry. Then he continues moving out with his infantry. Moves the recon over here, over to this side, kind of like I suspected, to try and get some vision on the area, help out the artillery a bit. Continues to go forward. He does first strike my tank, which is terrible for me, but he also strikes on my infantry that's capping his property. Although, as you're going to see, he doesn't do much else on that infantry, which is really weird. He builds an anti-air of his own, because he does know I have battlecopter now. He builds infantry, battlecopter, infantry. And all he does is he just moves this tank down, and he doesn't end up like trying to go for the cap over here. Maybe he was trying to go to the forest and got trapped, and the replay's bugging out and didn't show that. I don't know. Either way, I continue to try and interrupt this cap as much as possible, and I move over the tank. I probably could have killed the infantry, but I figured trying to keep the tank alive would be better, but I don't think so now. I move onto the property and shoot his infantry, so that way he can't get it, and then I join Cap over here, meaning he's going to have a pretty tough time trying to get it, because it's considering that it's at 3 hit points overall. I first strike his tank with mine, and then I'm able to basically just try and get some intel. I want to know where his stuff is, because he's driven out all of my eyes. So I move the infantry up, see nothing. Okay, just ran the APC up here. The APC, as you can see, has 29 fuel. I moved it around quite a lot, and I've gotten quite a lot of extra movement with my infantry. I mean, the fact that I have these properties and that I have an income lead right now is really good for me. So I'll take what I can get. And I'm able to move my anti-air over to the forest, so that way I'm able to keep it in cover. I shoot on the infantry per normal, and I shoot on this one as well. I finish off the 2 hit point infantry, which is always good, and I move the anti-air right by my battlecopter to make sure that if an anti-air of her own comes in, I can try and take it out with mine and deal a pretty good first strike, or if a battlecopter comes in to deal some hefty blows, I can then punish that heavily. Excuse me just a moment. Alright, back in it. I do move away with my tank to get some healing on it, and I'm able to get a first strike with mine, and I just skipped the turn, so let me rewind it back, and I apologize. I'll get us back to where we were. Again, I do apologize. First strike over here, get rid of that, move the tank back, strike here. Okay. Continue to move out with my infantry and my freshly built units, and I'm just firing over here. I've put the artillery here so I can continue to shoot on this to get my other artillery out. I build a tank, battlecopter, infantry. That's pretty much going to be my build order for quite a while, so long as I've got the funds to sustain it. We then move over to their turn, so they are able to just destroy out my APC, which is terrible. And I make a pretty big misplay next turn based off of what happens. I'll show you very soon. They join the tank up together. Don't know if really this is quite the best play, but doesn't matter. They do fire on this and bring it down to 8 HP. Not good, meaning it's harder to cap. They reinforce this capture over here, basically making it impossible for me to do anything with it. They do strike with my tank over here, and then they use the 3 hit point tank to try and weaken mine, which is really weird that they don't use their stronger one, but they put the stronger one in the forest. They continue to move over here, and move out with the infantry quite well. They bring in the battle copters now. They do attack with their infantry, bringing it down to 4, and then they strike with this one, which utterly destroys it, meaning that I don't get it at all, which sucks. It really does. You want to try and take properties away from Sasha as much as possible. Bringing down the recon to see exactly what's going to be going on over here, and then they do see my anti-air by moving the artillery. They move in a tank now that they know I have a anti-air to try and answer what I've got. Continue moving out with the battlecopters and infantry. Then they do market crash. You always want to do that right before you build a unit, so that way you get the most out of it. Utterly destroy my power bar. And then, as you can see, they'll go for NATO tank, infantry, and pass over. So that's a very big investment. Of course, that's most of the money that they had. And the NATO tank is a very strong unit. It deals a lot of damage. But you're going to see that even though it does do quite a bit, it doesn't matter much, I guess you could say. So let's go ahead and continue. I start firing on his infantry on the road. I move over so that way I can still take out the 6 hit point one. I move on to the city to take out that battlecopter with my anti-air, taking a very good engagement overall. And I start capping over here. I move over with the battlecopter to attack on this infantry, which is going to be a very good engagement for him very soon, as you'll see. But I do fire on his infantry overall, take quite a few shots, finish off that infantry right there, that tank, so I can finish off the infantry right here. Excuse me, I do apologize. I fire with the anti-air, and then I move over and I attack with my artillery, or I attack on the artillery. I really wish I had have moved the infantry first, so I could have then taken out the battlecopter. Would have been really good to have done that. Also, you can see it's capping on my properties, which is bad for me. I move over the tank to help reinforce, to try and make sure I can hopefully get this city. Again, you want to try and take as many as you can away from Sasha without, of course, endangering yourself. I move over a bunch of units so that way I can try and get a better presence of what's going on over here. And I'm finally able to move out with my artilleries, so that way they can try and do something. I'll give you a hint, they do nothing. Continue moving out over here on my end, moving with the infantry, getting them into position, and then I go for a tank, and infantry. Don't have enough for the battlecopter yet, but I'll be able to carry over some money pretty soon. Just a moment, please. There we go. So we continue on to Sasha's turn, moves over, and starts capping another city of mine, which is bad. I definitely don't want her to take more from me, because that means that she's really just getting up there. As you can see, we're making even right now, which is bad, and they're going to be taking a city from me soon, which puts them quite a bit ahead. So move over with a lot of their tanks to try and squash my presence over here with all my infantry. And they're doing a pretty good job taking things out, moving as best as they can. They move out the recon, and then they do strike over here, dealing a pretty heavy blow. Move over onto the HQ to protect it, and they put this battlecopter in the forest. I'm not too sure why, but now you can see, bam, moves over with the anti-air and destroys that battlecopter, which sucks. They move out the NATO tank to get this into position and continue moving with their infantry per normal. They do finally end up capping the city up at the top pretty soon. Once they move down with the artillery, they pull the battlecopter back, so that way it doesn't get just wiped out by my anti-air. Build an anti-air of their own, a tank, and an infantry, and pass over to me. So now, what I do is I move my battlecopter up to strike this, the artillery down to 2 hit points, deal pretty heavy blow onto the infantry right here, and also nearly take out this one. I really probably should have attacked this one to try to have taken it out, because then this wouldn't be able to fire on anything, but that's besides the point. Continue moving forward. What was just happened? Okay. Yeah, I cap and then I join cap over here to try and get the city. First strike on the tank, on the anti-air, excuse me, to get that out. I strike on his battlecopter to remove that, and I strike his battlecopter as well. I'm able to continue moving out with mine to get a first strike over here and almost annihilate his presence that he's got, basically, because I deal a finishing blow onto his tank and leaving the other at 3 hit points, and it can't even go anywhere. I continue to move out with my artillery, keeping them together to try and make sure their ranges are overlapping. I strike on the 4 hit point infantry, and then I move to finish off the 2 hit point one. I do move the tank over to finish out the anti-air, and then I can also deal a pretty hefty blow to the recon. And then I finally start capping on this one again to try and even things back out. I move over and I do destroy the infantry that is on the HQ, and I basically just try to apply some pressure to the HQ. Let them know, hey, you're going to have to divert forces to get rid of these infantry that are coming out, otherwise you're not going to have a great time. Continue moving out, build out a tank, and you're going to see both battlecopter, tank, infantry. Standard play that I like to do. He moves over with battlecopter, gets a really good first strike, takes it down to 2 hit points. First strike's my anti-air, which is terrible for me, meaning that I have no real way to deal with these battlecopters right now. Moves over to cap the middle city. He can't interrupt my capture currently on the other one, though, which is great. But he does continue to move out with his bunch of forces, brings in the anti-air now. Granted, I only have 1 battlecopter, and I can easily dart around that, but that's besides the point. He fires on this battlecopter, which is terrible. And then he's able to actually move the other battlecopter in just a moment to take it out. But he first strikes my anti-air first, and then he attacks with the artillery to bring it down to 2 hit points. He combines them together to a 3 hit point one and moves down with his infantry to get a first strike, which is pretty bad considering that it only dealt 7 to me, and then I dealt 4 back, or sorry, it left me with 7, and he was left with 6. That's really terrible engagement on his end, but he market crashes to make sure I can't do anything. He just take a couple of few small engagements, nothing major. Like I've said before in the other video, with Sasha, you want to always make sure you take as many engagements as you can prior to. I'm assuming she probably saw that with some of the power boost that you'd get, the 10% firepower, they might be able to take out the infantry, so they wanted just to go for the kill on those, but they ended up not being able to. Move the, the recon back, so that way it can still provide vision, but not get destroyed. Then they do take out the battlecopter, which is terrible. Then they go for a rocket, battlecopter, infantry, and then we go to turn 16. So, let's see here. Turn 16, I cap on that city to now take me up to 22. I fire and finally finish off that tank, and then I'm able to fire on this capping infantry over here to just remove it from the game with all of my other units. I'm able to then move up with my artillery, keeping them trying, to be together. I move over with the battlecopter, strike on the infantry, and now in hindsight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I should have definitely moved it over here, but you'll find that it doesn't matter much. I do move this infantry over here to make him have to move in order to take it down, and then I move over with a tank and keep my artillery moving up as well. I do finally cap this one, putting me at 23, which is really good. That's a really good number to be at. And I end up striking on the battlecopter to try and take some pretty good shots on it, and I do some decent damage overall. I take out the one that's on the HQ as well, and I'm able to move over and first strike his infantry from the property. I'm able to actually end up finally killing this one as well, meaning he cannot do anything with it. I'm also able to move over with the battlecopter, strike the tank. I'm able to first strike his infantry, almost kill it. I sadly don't. I wish I could have, but again, we're okay right now. Just a second, please. I do apologize, I'm having to mute it so much to cough. I'm sick. Being sick sucks. But I take the engagements on the tanks, so that way there's pretty much no presence now on the map for them. But I do continue to move out with my units, and I'm able to push them more towards the middle, so that way we can start focusing on where the action is going on, really, and that is in the middle. Move everything out, and I go battlecopter, infantry, despite me being able to have built a tank. And the reason for that, you'll find out pretty soon. It's because you built that nano tank is what changed everything. But we go to his turn 16, moves down with the nano tank, and first strikes the tank, utterly destroying it per normal. Strikes with the anti-air to kill my battlecopter, which does suck. Strikes on my tank, gets a really good shot, moves over with the rocket to try and get this into range, and then he fires on some of my infantry, kind of wiping a bunch of them out and taking them down pretty low. Continues, and then he finally kills that one over here, which does suck. He moves the tank back to get healing, always good for him. Moves down with the battlecopter and infantry, and then he first strikes the infantry, takes it down, and is on the HQ. He puts the recon over here to get some intel as to what's going on, and then activates the power. Again, no more engagements are being taken, so now he's good to build things. And then he goes battlecopter, tank, infantry. Moves this one down to keep it alive, and then we move to my day 17. I move to try and capture the property that they have on me, and to move out to see kind of what's going on. I get trapped. Actually, no, I don't get trapped. I think I just can only move by the tank, or by the recon, but I do take it out. I move the anti-air, and I get trapped by the tank. I move to capture this middle property, move over onto the city, so I still can't attack the anti-air. Because I know the anti-air is here, I can move my battlecopter away. I move over and I start attacking more infantry, taking out as much as I can. And as you can see, I move over with the tank to see what's going on. I use this tank to finish this infantry off, and then I start capping his HQ. Now, I'm under no impression that I'm going to get it, but this means that he's going to have to divert forces in order to stop me from getting it. I move over this tank and I fire on this infantry, and I'm able to kill it with my other infantry as well. This also puts me right in range to try and reinforce a capture on his HQ, and I have quite a few different infantry to do it with. I move over with the tank and fire on this infantry to go ahead and just deal a lot of damage to it. I'm able to move over and move my artillery up, again keeping them together so that in case one of them gets hit, I can try and strike with another, go for the battlecopter and move out with my infantry, and I build a bomber. And the reason for the bomber was so that way I can try and counter any ground units that come down and basically force them to build a fighter. Which, if I don't build any more air units, that fighter is almost useless. I'll go for tank, infantry, and move my turn over to my opponent. Opponent first strikes the tank, utterly kills it. I don't know if they meant to strike this infantry or not to weaken my ability to reinforce, so that I'm not sure. They move over with their battlecopter, strike on the infantry, dealing it down to 8 hit points, and then they resign. I don't know if this was necessarily the best play to do at this point. I mean, we were trading, I think, decently well overall. Granted, I was pushing pretty hard, and I did check some of the damage calcs, and with this tank firing on my infantry, it would deal pretty heavy blow to it. I wouldn't be able to cap very much, and because of this nano tank, it would be able to deal quite a lot of damage. None of my artillery are in range to even try and do anything to any of the units that are over here, and I don't have any type of anti-air support really readily available. So I'm honestly not even really able to sustain the capture, but they concede. I still get it. I mean, the value difference that we have is pretty significant. I have quite a bit of an income lead as well. I'm basically having 4 properties over Sasha, which is really bad for her. But yeah. So definitely do want to say thank you guys for watching, for sure. I hope you all enjoyed the replay commentary. Definitely let me know what you think I should have done differently on the map, or maybe what my opponent should have responded with differently as well. Again, I'm always trying to learn and take the advice that I'm given. So definitely just let me know what you guys think for sure, but I hope that y'all have a fantastic day. Y'all please take care.